Hello and welcome to Owen the Town, and today's episode is one we've been excited for a while now. I'm joined by Dave today, no Bataro, no Steve, too early in the morning for that.
Too early, yeah.
But the star of the podcast, and joining us today all the way from Western Australia, Chris Coyne. Good morning. How are you? Good morning, good afternoon, I should say.
Yeah, good afternoon, mate. Yeah, beautiful 23 today in Perth, so I hope you boys are okay. I appreciate you with the time difference and that. I do really appreciate you jumping on so early.
No worries. It's a chilly start to the day in England here, I'm not going to lie, but probably get some rain.
Raining?
It's not raining yet.
Not quite raining yet.
Not yet.
But it will. It will rain, I think.
Basically, Chris, we wanted to get you on a podcast. We just wanted to take you down memory lane and just talk about your time at Luton. Maybe tell us stories we've never heard before, because there's been some that have come out in the past from former players, and I'm just like, I need to know more. So that's like the aim of today, is just to take you down memory lane.
Yeah, mate. It was. I've got to be honest with you. We were chatting about it the other week, and it was a special time in my life. You know, I was a young boy. I was 21, 22 when I went in there, and it was just a great place to be. And even going back there in September, I hadn't been back to the UK for about 8 years. Not that I didn't miss it, but I just didn't feel the need to do it. And just going back, and you're still seeing the same people there. You know, it's just a good place and such a good club. And they've still got, you know, if you walk in the door and you're seeing people that you saw 10, 15, 20 years ago, and that's the beauty of the club. And they don't forget anyone, which again was really warming for me to walk in the door with my son after such a long time, and people are still there to give you a hug and see you. So no, it's a special place in my heart, and somewhere I'll never forget. And my three boys are from L&D anyway, so you know that's one of the first results they check for as well.
I love that.
Come Sunday morning.
Have they got like Luton tops and everything? Are they all kitted out?
Oh yeah, they are. They're Liverpool tragics as well. So the Irish boys over the road, that kills me, because my old man's a true Everton fan. So it absolutely pains me to see them wearing those shitty red shirts. But fortunately, during my time there, we were fortunate enough to play Liverpool in a couple of epics, weren't we?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that didn't help. They'd done the treble in 2005, in 05 or 06 or whatever it was, and that was just their sort of formative years when they were sort of getting into football. So it is what it is, but you know, they still wear the gear. They've still got, you know, stuff up there, and they're proud Lutonians at the end of the day.
That's what we loved here, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to say that when my lad was given a Manchester United shirt when he was younger, it didn't survive.
No.
I'm just telling you that. It didn't survive, Chris. You can take control of what shirts they wear. The Luton ones are always the best ones.
Well, you can, but the problem I've got now, right? One's 6'4", one's 6'1", and the other one's he's pushing 6 foot. So
yeah, leave them alone.
I'm just like gone down in the pecking order real quickly.
Okay, I think you should let them wear their Liverpool shirts then.
I think so, for my own well-being, mate. I think I need to.
Yeah.
Well, you joined Luton in 2001. Joe Kinnear signed you. And when he signed you, he described you as a big and strong and uncompromising centre-half who can pass the ball with both feet. He says he can read the game well and he's young enough to improve. When you sign for a new club, hearing them comments must be quite motivating. Yeah,
it was motivating, but the biggest thing for me, the biggest driver was Joe and Mick as a partnership. You know, their people skills, and yes, they sold the club, but they sold the dream as well. And the fact that, you know, if I can swear on here, they didn't bullshit.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
You know, they was completely honest, and the club followed what they were doing. And yeah, they were big words, and I did enjoy the fact that they had that confidence in me stepping into my first game. And then I was fortunate enough to score an own goal in the 87th minute to give us a 1-1 draw. So I wasn't obviously that good with my left peg. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gone into Wembo's top corner. But, you know, it was a good place, and you could see what they were trying to build. And I think given a bit more backing, I think, you know, we were in trouble at the time and there was a lot going on. But I think if we'd stuck with what we were doing, I think the club would have been in a really strong place with the vision and momentum that Joe and Mick had built up.
I think the momentum thing is the right thing to say. I remember, I was at your debut at Luton, but I just remember the fans were behind Kinnear. I think we were just rolling along with him, I think, and having Mick as number two for me was a fantastic thing. What was Kinnear like to work with, really? Because I just get the feeling that he just rolled in and rolled out, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but he did. Oh, absolutely, he did. I mean, we saw the fridge at training probably 3 or 4 times in the time that he was there with us. But do you know what? When he spoke, you listened because he knew what he was talking about. He was probably old school in the terms that he was more of a manager than a coach, but
Right.
he knew how to get the best out of his players, and he'd have those conversations, and he'd drop little smart ass one-liners in. And it's only now that you're a bit older and you think, shit, he was asking me a question there that he was challenging me.
Yeah.
And the fact that he had Steenie and Mick there that could run it day to day, it actually worked out really well because you're not getting the same voice in your ear every day. You're getting, Brian and Mick during the week. And then when Joe comes in, he was going, no, this is what we're doing. And Mick and Steenie being such good managers or good coaches in what they were doing, they just reiterate what Joe was going through. So it was a good balance. It was a good working environment because then you weren't. Sometimes as a player, you block stuff out. So if you've got the same voice in your ear talking shit constantly, you just turn off.
Yeah.
And you want to listen, but you just can't help it. And I think the way that Joe done it, it was a little bit old school, but it was a good outcome, and he was good at what he did.
I often wonder when you're not performing quite well, not just as a team, and you go into that dressing room at half time and the manager steps up, how much do people listen to that? Or are you just talking to each other? You sort of, I can.
Oh, no. Listen, I mean, we're going back, so we're almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So when the gaffer walked in, you listened. And if you didn't, Mick was stood in the corner leaning against the door frame, ready to rip your head off. So you listened, but you respected people. I think that, I think society's changed a little bit now.
Yeah.
But when the manager walked in, you were in awe. When he spoke, you listened to every word. Whether you agreed with him or not, it's a bit different. But the best thing about Joe, once he'd had his rant, I mean, Blackpool away, we were 3-0 down or 4-0 down, second game, League One. And Joe Kinnear took Alan Nielsen off after about 17 minutes, 20 minutes, came in at half-time, went ballistic. I think we got it back I think we ended up losing 5-3. We were in the dressing room, Blackpool away, Tuesday night. We didn't finish with Joe till about 12 o'clock.
Wow.
He just tore shreds off everyone.
Does that ruin some players' confidence when that's happening?
It was, yeah. I walked out there. I felt 1,000 yards tall after that, mate. It was, yeah. But he was challenging you. He was just saying it's not acceptable. So if you're going to accept mediocrity, then let's go through the season where he put the gauntlet down. I think it was the second game or third game of the year, and just put a gauntlet down and said, what, if you're going to be successful, let's sort stuff out. So he was ruthless. He was, I wouldn't say he was vindictive. I think he treated everyone fairly, which was another good trait. But his neck was on the line as well. He just come out the Premier League, went down to League Two. So he had to get results as well. So yeah. Good times. But, yeah, that was funny, that 2-hour conversation of him just screaming at us and going bananas. It was good value. It's something now you look back at and go, wow. Ended up getting back to Luton at 5 a.m, which was even better.
My God.
I wish there was a camera crew there.
Oh, a camera crew, that would have been...
Yeah.
Oh, mate. It was, honestly, if a camera crew had been there, you wouldn't have heard anything because it would just been the whole way through because it was just absolute carnage.
And with Mick Harford, obviously he's still around the club now and he's such a legend. He has everyone's respect. He has all the fans' respect. And how much respect have you got for someone like Mick Harford and what's he like to work with? Because a lot of people wouldn't know.
Yeah, listen, still now I'm turning 42 this year. If I saw Mick, I'd still shake his hand and he's still a god to me. He's just got that standing in the club and as a person as well. You know where you stand with Mick. He's completely honest, let alone his football brain. The guy's, he's very good, but Mick is the football person. He's probably in the top 10, 15 in UK football. Oh, and wow. I don't say that because I've got a soft spot for him. I say that because I've seen the way that other people react to Mick. They've got so much respect for the guy. Yeah, he could belt you up if he needed to, but he's very quietly spoken and he's very studious and understands the game well. And I don't think that anyone that's played for Mick would have a bad word to say about him. And I don't think there's too many in the football fraternity that would speak badly about Mick Harford. He's a true student of the game and, what he's done for Luton in general. I mean, geez, wow. The guy's absolute legend. I think there'll be a statue at the new stadium, I think, of Mick Harford.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think there's a single fan or person that knows the Luton town would say anything different to what you just said. Fantastic. No. Yeah, he's a good guy. I like him a lot.
You say that.
He is a good guy, but he's honest when he needs to be. Don't get me wrong. Mick's got that streak.
Yeah.
That if he's not happy, he'll let you know in no uncertain terms. But it's always for the right reason. There's no double-edged sword with Mick. It's straight down the line. And if he doesn't like something, he'll tell you.
Yeah,
and I think that's why everyone respects him so much.
Is that what you got then when you scored that own goal on your debut?
No, I got a cuddle actually. They pumped my tyres up that much, and then I let them down. But I mean, it's one of those things, when the ball bounces off your hip and goes in the top corner, what can you do?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing the right thing, trying to get back into cover, and it happens. I mean, I wasn't too happy about it. Got back to the hotel. We were in the Thistle at the time, and I was pretty dejected. You feel like you've come in, only trained 2 days before the game, and felt a bit deflated. But it's one of them. I think that's where my relationship with Russell Perrott started from, because he just sort of said, "Don't worry about it, mate. It happens. It's gone. It is what it is. Just make sure you don't do it next week." So,
yeah.
We had a couple of beers and a cuddle and something to eat, and that was it.
Do you ever get players that when you score like an own goal that they don't take it the right way? Or is it normally like you score an own goal and everyone's like, you know what, mate, head up, doesn't matter?
Yeah, well, it depends, because we had a strong dressing room. So if someone had reacted the wrong way, I think they would have got strung up in the dressing room once they'd walked in there. So we had a good culture. We looked after each other. We made sure that if you weren't pulling your weight, you were told. And if it was an honest mistake, no one pulled anyone's. No one pulled any punches. They'd put your arm around you. Don't worry about it. If you were doing the wrong thing, you certainly got told about it by your teammates, which I think was really healthy. And it certainly made for a good dressing room, because everyone was on the same page. Everyone was pulling in the same way together. So, no, it was a good dressing room, and good, honest people that were working hard to get good results. So we didn't have any of that sort of palaver that you see nowadays, where people are throwing their arms up in the air and pointing the finger. I think we're a pretty honest unit that looked after each other.
Do you think that's what modern day football's lacking now, is stuff like that from previous years?
100%. 100%. You look at these kids, they're coming out of, all right, so you take Lonese into the equation, right? They're on 30, 40 grand a week, never kicked a football in anger, come down to Luton, pull up in their Porsche, and they just expect to get paid and everything's hunky-dory. Where, and I don't begrudge them the money. It's not the money side of it. They should be grateful for the fact that they're earning a living out the game. And they should be, they're very fortunate that they're getting it. Where the problem is now, there's that much money in English football, and these kids are that rich that quick, they don't appreciate it. And they're always quick to point the finger, yeah, but I'm on 40, 50 grand a week, I'm a good player. No, you're not. You've not done anything.
Yeah. You've
bandied about from club to club for the last 5-6 years. You've got talent, but you haven't done anything yet. And I don't want to point the finger at Izzy Brown, but I suppose I'm going to at this point, because for me last year when I watched him play, on his day, unbelievable. You'd hate to mark him, but then I saw him at times where he may as well have had a Cuban in his gob. Mm-hmm. And that wouldn't have worked with our group. If you'd done that and it was Steve Howard or Kevin Nichols or myself or whatever, we would have pulled you up on that. We would have had a crack at you. It's not acceptable. But he is a good player, and I'm not saying that he's not, because the guy's electric when he plays, when he chooses to. But you know what? When you go away to Hartlepool or you go away somewhere, roll your sleeves up, crack on, and get a job done.
I think we've said exactly the same on the podcast a couple of times about Izzy. I mean, on his day, he's fantastic. But there's some days he goes missing, and I don't remember many of the team in your era going missing at all. Not at all. We're very strong.
We have the. Do you know what? We had the odd blip. I reckon if you look back through the records, we'd have it every 9 weeks. We might have the one game where you'd look at it and go, how they lose to such and such 4-2 away from home.
Yeah.
But I think that was because we had a smallish squad as well, where everyone was backing up week on, week out. And then you had the occasional blip, and then you'd go and do it again. When we went up the leagues, obviously we had a couple of blips early on in the seasons and then went through it. But everyone was accountable. So there's no way that you tolerate people not pulling their weight. And I mean, I've gone on about John Louis Valois before, enigma, character, footballer, but do you know what? He worked hard as well, and he bought into what we were doing.
And there's a name I
just think, I'm on the other side of the world. So again, this is only my opinion. I saw 3 or 4 games, and I do watch the games, but for someone with Izzy Brown's ability, he should be dominating and dictating games in the championship, because I think he's scary. He's got shitloads of ability. Whether he chooses to use it or not, my point was more the fact that they get paid that well that early that they lose a bit of hunger and they don't keep doing what they're good at.
Yeah, well, I hope when he's playing for Sheffield Wednesday, he's rubbish when he's playing us.
Let's hope so.
Oh, well, he can play well. He done a job for us this year, so he can play well for them, just not against us.
That's right.
True. When we sort of then go back to that 2001-2002 season, which ended in automatic promotion, it ended up being a good year, and you scored a few goals as well.
Yeah, I used to try and chime in with a few. I mean, I was quite aggressive at attacking the ball, and I love getting into the box. I mean, I started my career as a 9, and then I got into the Australian under-17 team, and the coach just went, "You're not a midfielder or an attacker, you're a defender." So I was always okay at scoring goals, but it was always good to chime in. We prided ourselves that year on clean sheets. I think it was 16 or 17 games towards the end of the season where we only conceded something stupid like 3 or 4 goals. And we used to look at each other and go, right, again, we're going to do it again today. But if we did that Steve Howell was going to score for us, or Nico would slot one, or, we just had that belief that if we could do our job and we could make sure that Embers or whoever was in nets didn't have to make a save, we were going to score goals. Matty Taylor would always pop up with goals. Yeah. So we knew that if we kept it tight at one end, that those boys would look after us. And it was one of them. We did pride ourselves on it. And we're actually spewing. I think we conceded 2 or 3 at Donny at the last game of the year.
Yeah.
Which was, it was one of them where, to be fair, we'd been on a bit of a jolly up the week before. But we went out. We wanted to win.
I want to hear about this jolly up.
I shit you not, the dressing room that day was pretty intense, because everyone was saying, don't let yourself down. You've set this sort of standard and you've set this record. Don't let yourself down. And I think we went 1-0 down, 2-0 down. Nico scored a screamer, didn't he? Smash one from about 30, 40 yards. And we were spewing at the end of the day that, we didn't get the result we wanted and conceded goals. But, I think we went on a 16, 17 game unbeaten run, only conceded 3 or 4. So it was just a characteristic, I think, of the group we had, that we, you do your job, we'll do ours, and we'll look after each other.
And the fans believe in you. When you're playing well, the fans really get behind, don't they? Really get behind you. I mean, it must be great listening to that crowd at Kenilworth Road or wherever you are. When you go away and you walk out and there's a few thousand fans there watching, that must be a good feeling.
Mate, it's amazing. It's the best feeling in the world. Don't get me wrong though, right? I've been in shopping centres, or I've been at the Arndale, or I've gone to Tesco's or something, and I was shitting on the Saturday. They'll let you know as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Which you can't always get the cuddles and the kisses. Sometimes you've got to take the knocks as well. But that was people don't understand. When I sort of explain to people from here or Luton, once the new stadium goes up, right? And I don't care if we're in the Championship or Div 1, let's say it holds 22,000. We will fill that every single week. Yeah, I don't care what people say. We go to Wembley and there's only a certain amount of tickets. Every single ticket was sold in 2 days. And people don't realise that is their club, that's their area, and they're proud of it. So they don't understand that Luton's got the potential to be a monster club. We're looking at the Bournemouths and the Brightons and the Huddersfields. I think Luton, I don't even think they come into the same category as a Luton Town.
It's kind of like the potential's there, isn't it?
What's that, mate?
It's kind of like the potential for the club to grow is there.
Absolutely. And the fan base is there, and the people from the area love that club. Okay, they might look for Arsenal's result, but Luton's their team.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, and they're so staunch. It's scary, and I've played at some big stadiums, whether it was for the Aussie team or whatever. When we scored at Kenilworth Road in a big game, it's as loud as anywhere you'll go, and it does give you that 12th man, and it has the adverse effect as well. When you're getting thumped or you're not having a good day at the office, it has the adverse effect because they are vocal, but they win you more games than they lose you because they're so vocal.
Then I'm going to take some credit for that because I go all the time.
I wanted to talk about the next couple of years after 2001, 2002 season, when everything just seemed to go mental and crazy. So Kinnear was sacked, Harford left as well, and it was all followed by this like manager idol contest to decide who was going to be in charge again, which I think now when you look back at it, just seems bizarre and surely like the only time in football this has ever happened.
I don't think it was real. I think your man who came in was just spinning it. He already knew who was coming in, right? You must have known that. And was you aware?
No,
was you aware they had been sacked?
We came into the players' car park, and he was walking through the door. I think I got in quite early. I was in Warden Hills at the time, so I got in early to miss all the traffic coming in. And then you've got this big, monstrous, sweaty dog walking through the door, and you're sitting there just going, "What is going on here?"
Yeah.
And then I saw Cherry Newby, who was the club secretary at the time, and I'm like, "What's going on here?" Because I'd been in Australia for 4 weeks, so I went home to see mum and dad and see the family and whatnot. And that was the first thing that I walked into, and it was just like, what's going on here? So it was surreal. You know, it was tough times. No one knew where they stood. The worst thing is we're a family club. You walk in the door, so you've got everyone the whole way through till you get to the dressing room and upstairs. We were all on the same page. You know, Dickie, the groundsman, everyone was on the same page. Yeah. And we've got this clown sitting there going, "Well, you're not getting paid this month and this isn't happening." But that wasn't just the players. That was everyone.
Yep.
So I think that's what galvanised the group, because we were all together. And it wasn't just the players not getting paid or the staff not getting paid. Everyone was on the same hymn sheet. And I think that actually was a good thing because it actually brought us together. But the whole farce of seeing Britain's Got Talent or Luton's Got Talent, and I'm on the other side of the world trying to see what was going up and checking on with the boys, it was farcical. But, you know, in that time, that was just Luton, wasn't it? That was just where we were at the time. But I can't even remember his name now. He was, what was his name?
Gurney.
John Gurney, that was it. And it was absolute laughing stock, race track round around Stockwood and all the other crap. And you're sitting there just going, "Yeah, righto, mate. I mean, come on."
It must be quite, I think that must be quite, I know you said it kind of brought you and the team together and I guess the whole club, as you said, like everyone not being paid. But if you're like turning up to training and you're not knowing who the next manager is going to be, and it's being decided by this, you know, phone-in X Factor Britain's Got Talent contest, in your head, are you just thinking like, this is so unprofessional?
A little bit, but if we'd been a weak dressing room or we'd been weak characters, we would have crumbled, right? Because we're not getting paid. We were just going, right, you've reneged on my contract, we're out. But we had a good group. We were strong, and we said, "You know what, let's do it together. Let's work through this together and see where it takes us." I'll give Mick credit. He kept in touch with a few of us and was just going, "Boys, don't crumble. Make sure it's a good club. Do the right thing." And again, that Harford factor comes in there where he made sure that we knew that we'd get looked after. I think he maybe knew a bit more behind closed doors what was going on. But, yeah, it was farcical. It was one of them where you're turning up and you work hard, but you don't know what's going to happen. But, you know, I think that the strength of the dressing room and the strength of the character of the people behind the back rooms as well, they weren't getting paid. We were getting paid a lot more than them. And they were still turning up every day and still doing their jobs. Wow. And I think that speaks volumes. That's why I love the club so much, because we all stuck together when we could have very easily just went, "Yeah, do you know what, it's a bit hard." But we all dug in and rolled our sleeves up. And that goes the whole way through the club, whether it was the ticket office, the club shop, everyone was in the same boat, and we all decided that we're going to try and do it together. And it eventually worked in our benefit because we were strong and we stuck together.
True. I don't think I know a single. I could think of one who might have done it, but I don't know a single fan that would have voted in the manager idol. That's why it was a total farce. I just think Gurney knew he was going to appoint. I think the two he originally were going to bring in didn't come, or they were frightened off because of the fans' protest outside.
Didn't Cottrell get a job at Stoke, or he went somewhere else after doing well?
Yeah. I think he was offered, wasn't he? But there was Lee Power at one point? I can't remember.
He was going to bring Joe Kinnear back.
Lee Power was in there. I think Steve Cottrell was in there. Norley and Joe Kinnear was obviously there, but that was never going to happen. No. But I think it was a blessing in disguise for the club that Newley came in, because ex-Luton, good mates with Mick Steeny, and the best thing was he understood Luton. he understood the people of Luton as well and what football they wanted to see. So it was actually a blessing in disguise, whether it was through design or default. Yeah. Gurney and his wisdom or his specialness got the right outcome in the end anyway. So
true.
And he did well in that 2004-05 season. Maybe it's that togetherness you said that you built on to go and win the League One title. This was my first ever season watching Luton. I think I was like 9 years old during this season. And what a season to start supporting Luton. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. 9. But for my first season, it was an incredible year. And I want to talk about this year. So you scored some big goals this season as well. I've got just a few noted down. Tranmere away in a 1-1 draw. Bristol City away in a 2-1 win. Hartlepool away, like you said earlier. If you're going to Hartlepool away, roll up your sleeves.
Hey, have you seen that? Can you remember that goal?
I remember that goal. I remember because I didn't go.
Remember it?
I remember it. You're in your orange and your black shorts, outside the box, bottom corner.
But that one for me stood out because, I mean, the Tranmere one was important because Tranmere were up the top with us. And my old man used to play for Tranmere as well, so I had family there. My old man's a Scouser and my mum's from Wigan, so I had a lot of family there. So that was an important one. But the Hartlepool one, just stepping out and then kept going and going and going and going, and then all of a sudden it just opened up. But Mike Newell hated Hartlepool. They treated him badly, so there was a lot on that game because I think they were second or third at the time as well. And we got there on a Saturday, and at 5-3 or 10-3 on the Saturday, they said, no, we're not playing the game. So back on the motorway all the way back, and then we had to roll up there on a 7:30. It was, I think, January or December time. Freezing cold. They thought, we'll roll these soft lads and all the rest of it. And then we just went out. I think I scored the first. I think Kev Foley and then Enoch scored as well. And it was, I think that gave us, again, Christmas time, get points, roll the points out and stick them on the board. But that was a big one for me because I think it gave us a bit of momentum to go and win the league.
When you look back at that season, was there like a secret behind the success? Because obviously you could sit there and say there was togetherness. Was there anything like you can remember that was like, that was a bit of a routine and it just worked?
No, do you know what? There was no sort of set routine. I mean, Mike Newell, his best trait was the way that he managed the boys again. And because he was quite a young manager, he understood the players quite well and their thought processes. And people don't give Mike Newell the credit for how intelligent the guy was. Hyper intelligent. He's doing university studies. He's doing this, that, and the other. But the way that he looked after the players was superb. And if you'd done a job for Newell, he'd look after you. So there was no secret to it. I think we're fortunate that Joe and Mick had built a strong squad. I think Mike Newell was very good and astute in the signings that he made. Paul Underwood coming in and people like that. But, we already had the nucleus of a good team. And I think Mike Newell was very astute in what he added to and brought into that group. But there was nothing in particular. Robbo came in. Steve Robinson is a big one that obviously came in and scored a lot of goals. So, again, I think it was just the astuteness of the management that got the good people in and got people around them that they knew they could trust. And
another game you scored in was the all-important 2-1 win away at Wrexham to win the title.
Oh, goodness.
You and Curtis Davis. What a day that was.
I nearly fell down the stairs that day.
You must have been the one holding the camera.
Oh man, I tell you, there was one of my best friends came with me. I actually said to somebody that if we had a small chance of getting promoted that day, we would go. And because of the midweek games, we went. And then you hear from, I think Hull were at Walsall, weren't they, that day? And you hear they're losing, you're thinking, come on then, we can do this. And then, did we go one down? Can't remember.
Yeah, we did, after about 20 minutes.
And I'm thinking, what are you lot doing? Get your finger out. I've come all this way to bloody Wales to see us win the championship and you're not winning. But when you scored, I remember my mate had just had a brand new Luton Town tattoo on his arm, and literally like the day before, well, that got slapped. He wasn't best pleased. He wasn't best pleased.
I have to say, I remember, I can vividly remember scoring the goal because I spoke to Nico on the way up, and because we had a couple of big presences in there, everyone used to follow Steve Howard or Enoch or whatever. So I used to just, because I was a few inches smaller than them, I just say, Nick, I'll just go around the back. If you overhit it, I'll make sure that I make it a decent ball. So as I ran past Nico, I said, just hit me at the back post. I said, I've got this knob. I've got him all day long. He can't compete with me. And then all of a sudden, I mean, Nico's delivery was fantastic. He knocked some great delivery in. And it was one of them. I remember scoring the goal, and it's only because I've seen the highlights and I've seen the video a few times. I can't remember afterwards. I remember looking up at the stands because I think my uncle was up there on the day he drove up down from Liverpool. But it was the biggest adrenaline rush. I think one of the biggest adrenaline rushes anyway I ever had in football. And how many did we have there that day? Was there 4,000? It would have been close, maybe more.
There was a few. I couldn't tell you how many exactly. I do remember having a queue for a long time because it wasn't all ticket. I remember getting in the stand and we were behind the goal, and then they opened up the stand on the side of the goal. It was a good following that day, a really good following.
Oh, it was a massive following. And I just remember that away end. I could just remember when I stood there and just saw the away end, and it was just like, wow, how good's this? But it was good as well. I mean, you look back at those game highlights, I think that was Curtis's first ever professional goal.
Yeah. And you know,
he was like Bambi on ice, wasn't he, when he was running off? His arms and legs were falling off. It's like, mate, enjoy it. But it was some celebration. But no, that was a great day. Even after the game, it was a sense of relief. But that day itself and that game, I mean, that atmosphere at the game was something else.
How did you guys celebrate the title win then? Was it a night out in Wales?
Or was it back in I think we might have gone past Tesco's for a carry out on the way back. But the good thing is I can't remember, I think. So, but that was a fantastic group. I mean, we were close again. I keep going back to that, but that was one of the biggest driving forces. But you know, that as a game as well, the way it panned out, I think we were pretty comfortable. But there were some big games. I mean, Plymouth at home, that was one of the loudest things I've ever heard. When I think it was Burko scored, didn't he, to make it 2-1?
Yep, I think
when
you're right.
We beat Plymouth that year, that was massive. So plenty of key moments, but yeah, that was a special moment for me. I do really enjoy it. And then the ironic thing as well, it was St. George's Day, which all the Poms would have loved as well.
Yeah, I loved that. Absolutely loved that. It was such a brilliant day out. Honestly, we left super early. We had a van full of 6 to 8 people. Case of beer, as you do. I was driving, so I didn't drink, just to let you know. But yeah, do you know? Well, maybe I had 1 or 2, but not too many. But the things with when you're a Luton fan, these do stick in your mind. These days out and the celebrations and the noise, and you go in and there's loads of people there. We love it. And when you watch your team, because I've been watching the team since I've been 5 years old, so you know it's quite a while. It's just that moment. We probably.
It's the moment you live for as a fan.
Yeah, as a fan, yeah. I'd love to be on the pitch, but I'm rubbish, so that wouldn't have worked. So.
But do you know what? We felt that as well. I think we were aware of that. And we knew, because do you know what? There wasn't that distancing at that time, was there? Because we used to go to the locals. We used to go and have a beer. We used to go to TGI Fridays and not have a problem socialising. I think with social media and phones, and I think it's a completely different era now where players don't mix with punters as much as they used to.
That's true.
But because we were good, we were punters. We were, you know, normal in terms of we weren't as open to criticism in terms of the social media and all the other stuff that comes. We could come and have a beer with everyone and have a drink in the, you know, we could go into wherever. Where I think now that's sort of frowned upon and with the onset of social media, Facebook or whatever. Yeah. So I think people took us more we were a part of what you guys were going through as well, because we were able to interact a lot more. I think that's been lost to an extent now, and it's a shame, because you don't realise how much it hurts and how much happiness you can bring to people when you're not a part of it. Yeah. Where I think we understood that as a group. I think we got it, because when we won, you won, and we realised that. And it did, you know, it was a big driving force, I think.
It's like now you look at like the likes of Jack Grealish, if he goes out quite a bit, I guess, in Birmingham, and you know, he has like one beer and everyone's taking photos, it's all over social media, and it's like players now can't go out and, you know, have 1 or 2 beers, because it feels like everyone is out there just to capture them, pass it on, and basically like spread a bad word, I guess, like you said.
Well, they become pariahs, don't they? Because they're earning so much money now, and the average man's not earning anywhere near that. So they look to, scapegoat someone and say, well, he shouldn't be doing that. He's earning X amount. They're still human beings at the end of the day, and they've got to live. As long as they're doing a job on a Saturday, who cares?
Yeah.
Yes, you've got to respect the fact that you're not just represent yourself, you represent your teammates, the club and the town. But everyone's got to live and also have that freedom to do what they need to do, because otherwise you get the opposite end of the spectrum when they're 40 and we're seeing all these divorces and, all the other stuff that's going on in the world at the moment. You've still got to live your life because you've only got one go at it. So, yes, I agree that there's certain disciplines you've got to instill in yourself and do properly. But I also think that people have to give, not just footballers, I think people in general just need to give them a bit of leeway to be themselves and appreciate life.
True.
Maybe you guys had a bit of leeway in the Championship, because I've heard Warren Feeney talk about this on a podcast. I don't know if you've seen this, and I just really want to know if it's true. So we basically
do realise, I'm just going to throw a precursor in here, Warren Feeney's mad as shit. He's one of the maddest dudes I've ever come across. So I'll take this with a pinch of salt and see where it takes us.
He really doesn't come across that kind of guy. I think when you look at Warren Feeney, you think he's just like a really quiet guy. Is that not the case?
Are you kidding me? He must have had a Valium before he spoke to you. I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
I've seen the guy stood in the dressing rooms with a Northern Irish flag, stuck bollock naked, sitting there singing songs. He's off his head, mate. Don't worry about it.
That is what we want to hear. Yeah. So basically, he said in pre-season, you guys went out to Bulgaria. He said there was a nightclub in the hotel, which he said you were in most nights. Is that true?
No. We went the last 2 nights.
Okay.
So Newley sort of said, I'll give you some time, but you give me the first week. So, yeah, you're right so far. Keep going.
Okay, and then he said you'd train like 3 times a week. So it's like you'd have Monday off, you'd have Wednesday off. And he said on a Friday, you'd have KFC, a bargain bucket, every week.
That was Fino. I did or he did?
Just the whole squad, he said.
Nah, he's full of shit. That's why he always had his skin folds were struggling. No, we did. Listen, Bulgaria, the first bit was true.
Yeah.
So I think we went there for 8-9 days pre-season. We worked our socks off, mate. That was some good going, and we played. I think we played we played one of the Sofia teams anyway. And then the Saturday night we went out. I thought you were going to say, because there was, the old disco balls.
Yeah.
So there was one of those balls in the disco bit. There was only about 20 people in there, and I've just gone, I can head that. And Mike Newell just went, no chance. So I've gone and I've gone and nutted this thing, and it's gone flying off the roof. And then Newley was just doing Cruyff turns through the nightclub with this disco ball at his feet. I had a little razor cut on my head from button. Like, I didn't realise it was all glass
mirrors.
Things they put on it. So that was true, but we did have the odd jolly up. I mean, I remember we went to where did we go? We went to Marbella or Porto Banús once, and that was when we were sitting mid-table in the Championship, international break. We trained twice, and then Newley said, I'll see you on Friday, and gave us 3 days off, which at the time, I think we came back and won the next 3, so it wasn't an issue. But I think it was more to alleviate that stress and the pressure that you'd put yourselves under over that period. But the KFC, I reckon Nico might have gone for a couple of drumsticks in his time. But, we weren't like the boys are now. They're highly elite. They've got to be, because the foreign influx, there wasn't as many foreigners. So I remember when I got to West Ham, there was maybe 1 or 2. Then all of a sudden the next year it was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 94 World Cup was when all the remote, was it 94? Yeah, it was. And then all of a sudden all these foreigners came in, Radichoya, Dimitrescu, Bilic, Stimats, all started coming through. So then all these players that were playing Premier League before, or League One, all then came down to the Championship, and then it had a knock-on effect, which I think has been a benefit to an extent, not for the national team, but for the league in general. But there's less English players playing now. And I mean, yes, I'm a foreigner, but English-born or English-bred, I suppose, through my parents. But you saw this foreign influx more and more coming through. So I think there's boys that have played Championship their whole career that would have played Div 1 or Premier League, aside from that foreign influx. But as far as the KFC, Fino's he's a good lad, but I think he got the buckets wrong.
If KFC's all you've got, it's not too much of a problem, is it? It's not like you're necking a bottle of whiskey or something, is it?
No, I think it was the KFC buckets we might have filled with beer afterwards. It was a problem, but we gave it a nudge. We weren't angels by any extent, but we trained our asses off, and every time we stepped out, we made sure we done everything to win.
Who are you closest with that season? Like, you've got like one player who was like your best mate.
Me, Nico, Sol, Stevie Howard. We weren't really cliquey. I mean, Sol was my roommate, and I got on really well with Sol. I mean, he was quiet. He was a quiet lad, to be honest. But once I got into my room and it was a Friday night, I didn't want anyone to speak to. She does enough for that for the both of us during the week. So it was good just to be able to put my head down and would chuck, whatever was on at the time and have a bag of Haribos, bottle of water and go to sleep. So, I got on really well with Sol. Kevin Nichols was a good friend of mine. We spent a lot of time with the kids and family. We had kids a similar age. Steve Howard, we were very close. But, there was no sort of groups or cliques. Aki Berkovic as well. We all got on really well.
God, you keep naming these team players. I was thinking, God, I remember everybody. It was such
Bringing back memories, isn't it?
Oh, it was such a good time.
Yeah.
It was such a good time.
So after your great playing career, you're now working in Western Australia. Tell us a bit about what you're currently up to.
Yeah, so I packed in. I obviously came back, played for Perth Glory for a couple of years and snapped my Achilles in a challenge. I was about 32, 33, I think, at the time, which it's one of them, some people get injured early. I got injured after fulfilling what I probably set out to do as a young Aussie kid. So snapped that, did nothing for about 18 months. I played a bit of golf and tried to work on my handicap, but my only handicap was golfing. So got into coaching the kids, which I've really enjoyed for about 4 or 5 years, trying to, help kids out and do whatever. And then from there, I sort of started coaching, semi-professionally, semi-pro over here, and then went into finance. So had about 7 years now coaching Bayswater Soccer Club, which we've had a bit of success. Last couple of years have been a bit grim in terms of not winning any silverware, but really enjoyed it. But, life after football, you think you're going to be a footballer forever, right? And I enjoy the coaching aspect. Had a couple offers to go to India and coach in the IPL and stuff like that. But my oldest boy is 18, turning 19, middle one's 16, and youngest one's 14. So I think it's my job to raise them and raise some young men, and then I can start gallivanting around. And once they're in a position that I can leave them, I can then start pursuing my coaching career and what I want to do. But it's my responsibility, I think, to raise 3 good young people that I can leave and they can do their own thing and then pursue my coaching aspirations from there.
Nice. We've been to Australia and we've been to A-League games. What do you think the standard is compared to the UK?
Yeah, see, this is contentious because when I try and tell people that the A-League boys will get belted up by League 2 teams, they go, no, you're full of it. And I don't think people realise, because they've not sat on the trenches and the terraces, the A-League's technically good.
Yeah.
The problem the A-League's got is they play in the middle of summer. So when I got back, my first game back after being in the UK and that for 14 years, it was 36 degrees.
Wow.
And you're trying to play football in it. And it's not like, when you go on holiday to Tenerife or whatever and it's 36 degrees, it's not that sort of heat. Yeah. Add an extra 10 or 15 to it. It's this really dry, horrible heat. So it affects the game and it slows the game down.
Yes.
So technically the Australian kids are gifted. The problem that you've got in Australia is that they come from such a comfortable lifestyle that they're not fighting for anything. Mm-hmm. So if they've got no fire in their guts and they don't want to be successful, they're not going to achieve it because they've got everything they want on their doorstep. And that's no disrespect to the UK, but you go back to your council tenements and you go back to the working class there, they're fighting to get out. They've got something. You look at the Brazilians or the South Americans, they're fighting. It's me or you. I'm going to fight you to the death until I get what I want. Where to Australia's detriment, they haven't got that hunger. The other thing with Australian football, they've tried to model themselves on a philosophy or a curriculum that's based on Spanish and Dutch football.
Yeah.
You know, we're not. We're big, we're robust, we're made up of so many different ethnic minorities that we haven't got an identity in terms of our football yet, because people keep trying to reinvent it. So, you know, we used to qualify for Youth World Cups, quarterfinals, semi-finals. You know, we're always there or thereabouts. We can't even qualify for a World Cup now in junior football. So similar to that sort of circumstances England had, but I'd go back to all the foreign influx, and there was no kids coming through, where it looks like the UK through their academies has gone back to basics. Now all of a sudden England are winning, you know, Youth World Cups and doing what they should be doing with the amount of money that's in the game and the amount of quality that's in English football. A-League is a product. Listen, it's not a bad product, but if you're not there, you don't understand all the stuff that goes on behind the doors, because you're playing in 36 degrees. Imagine playing a Premier League game in 36, 37 degrees.
Oh, well, they struggled. They had to bring in water breaks, didn't they, after the lockdown?
I was just going to I was going to briefly say, when we was in Sydney, we went to the Sydney Derby, Wanderers, Sydney FC, and I would have loved it to have been 30 degrees heat that day, because it rained the whole time. It rained the whole time.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I found really weird was we were supporting Western Sydney, but everybody was mixing with everybody else. I just don't get that. As a Luton fan, they wouldn't do that with Watford, would we? Let's be fair.
Oh, good God, no. I still remember, I actually bumped into someone that was at that game at Vicarage Road when we played in the Carling Cup, and he was started telling me a couple of stories about it, and I was just going, yeah, I was at the far end of Vicarage Road, opposite end of the tunnel, when everyone flew onto the pitch, and that was absolute carnage. But that was by design. So the FFA, there was a lot of ethnic issues between the Serbians, the Croatians, and all the rest of it through that war and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they took the ethnicity away from the clubs. Now, if you're from Luton, you support Luton. If you're from Watford, you support Watford. In Australia, it was if you came from a certain community and migrated there, that was your club and that was your community. So what they did is they said, you can't be called, you know, Western Macedonia or Western Croatia. They took that away from the clubs, and what it done is it lost that cultural value that the clubs had.
Right.
So since they've done that, then you've got fans, you know, commingling and all the rest of it. And it did lose a lot. But early 90s, when I sort of grew up watching football and being a part of it, mate, it was segregated. There were still fences around the pitch, and whether that's right or wrong, you know, only time will tell. But I think that made a massive part in Australian football, and that's why we were getting Vidukas and Kules and all the rest of it. We haven't produced a player for a very long time. And I listen, that's not the sole blame. The curriculum is, and also that, but I think it's just lost that community feel, that hatred that you need in football. I don't care who you are. You've got to have a hatred. You've got to have a burn in your guts to enjoy your football. And that's been taken out of the game in Australia. It's too sanitised.
One thing you could say about Australia and fans and who people support is there's probably quite a few Luton fans out there in Australia. We actually reached out and we asked for some Luton fans to record us a message of a story about Chris Coyne. So have a listen to this. Have a listen to this. We had to cut this one short. It was like 2.5 minutes long, but basically this was a chance for you to be having your Australian debut against Ghana, apparently, in a friendly. So just have a listen to this.
And I'm going along and I'm in the posh seats, and I've heard that Chris Coyne's going to be on the bench. So I'm thinking this could be his senior Socceroos start. So this would be good. The game was terrible. The guy I was with and I got pretty drunk. And as the game got progressively worse, I start shouting out things like, bring Chris Coyne on, he'll liven it up. He might even get us a goal from a corner. And I became more annoying to everybody who was seated around me, and had a few more drinks. And then at half time, somebody shouts out, "Oi mate, why don't you have a chat with your mate Chris Coyne? He's down there." So Sydney Football Stadium there's quite a way between the pitch and the seats, and I just merrily, because I had about 10 beers in me by then, ran down there, and I thought, I'll try and say hello to him, thinking he'd probably think, who's this dickhead? And I'm shouting out, Chris, and he looks over like, not coming over there, you're a bit weird. And then I said, look, I support Luton. I'm a Luton fan, and I think Chris had moved to Colchester by then. And he came running over, he was very generous with his time. And I think we had a little sort of man hug or something. And then as I came back up the stairs, to take my seat. I looked at the guy and basically said, there you go, I've had a word with him. He might be coming on later or something like along those lines. But I think I got a little bit of kudos in the stand, albeit my drunk mate was laughing his head off. Pretty boring story, I suppose, really, unless you're me. But that's the gist of that. And I suppose I could be considered a bit of a stalker, a bit of a weirdo, but I'm not really.
A bit of a weirdo.
He's speaking a bit better than he was that night anyway.
Any remembrance of that happening in the
I do, yeah. We're in the bottom corner at the Sydney Football Stadium. I do remember it, yeah. And it was just one of those funny ones because they came to watch me on the last game of the year and I was injured and then I got called into that camp. But I do remember it. It was quite funny. And he had a few under his belt, but it was good fun. But I've always been that way, like at the end of the day, you're a footballer, you play, it's what you dreamed of doing, but what makes you different? Nothing makes you different. At the end of the day, you're still people and you treat people exactly the same. And if I hadn't have done the right thing or shown people respect, my old man would have slapped me over the head anyway. So, that for me is important, that you treat everyone right. I hate all this pompous shit now where people think they're above themselves and all the rest of it. It's important that you remember where you come from because I didn't come from much, but I was fortunate to play football. It doesn't make me any different from anyone else.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. It's been great. It's been great chatting to you for the last 45, 50 minutes.
It's been good fun. I've had a good chat. It's worth getting up for, wasn't it?
Very much worth getting up for. What do you make of Luton?
I apologise for the time, mate. I do apologise. It was you even had time to do your barnet as well.
I had time to do mine. Not sure about yours, but
No. You can't polish a turd, mate. Don't worry about that.
Before we let you go, Luton this season, what do you reckon? Enough to avoid the drop? Enough to push on for playoffs? What's your quick thought?
Absolutely. I think, do you know what? They were playing some good stuff last year, and I thought they were weak at the back. And it looks like over the last week they've gone and strengthened and added to what they already had. I thought a couple of them just weren't up to it personally at the back. And that's not just from me watching TV, that's me watching it live as well. So it looks like he's recognised that and gone and added. Was it the right thing bringing him back? Yeah, proof's in the pudding, right? Was it the right thing for him to leave? No one would begrudge him doing it. And that's no disrespect to Graham Jones either. But when players trust a manager, as soon as he came in, they all puffed their chest out and cracked on.
Yeah.
So I think he gets Luton, and I think he gets the people in and around the club. So I'm excited this year. I think if we can maybe add one or two more, I don't think we're too far off. I think maybe a few goals. I think that's the most important thing because there's only so much, Collins and that can do. I think there may be one short up top, but those guys don't grow on trees. So it'll be interesting to see. But excited. I'm really excited by this year. I'm really looking forward to it starting.
And the only issue we have is we can't go yet. So, that's the only issue we have. But we'll all be watching. We all want the same thing. We want Luton to do well and getting back to the level when you were playing, when we were winning.
And it's all kicking off in a couple of days' time, home to Norwich.
Yeah.
In the Carabao Cup. It's going to be a good one. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you are listening to this right now, you can go watch us on YouTube, Owen the Town. Get us on social media at Owen the Town. We shall see you next week. Chris, thank you once again.
Yeah, awesome, boys. Take care. Thank you so much for your time.